Welcome to the magical recap. Cheers. Welcome back. I'm excited to start a new series based on the votes from my Instagram account. We are doing the Marvel Cinematic Universe next as our big series. We are going in chronological order. One, it makes more sense to me. I've also watched it in release date order, but I've never watched the series in chronological order before. So I thought it would be a fun adventure for everybody. So for those of you who haven't watched Captain America, the First Avenger in a while, this video is for you. So we start in Penguin Land. Sure, they never really actually say. So there's these people that have been out there for a while, digging around for who knows what. Polar bears, bodies, mysteries, who cares? So they find something weird. They give this group of people a call. It's basically this giant ship plane that's been buried under ice for all these years. And they're digging around, messing around with stuff, and they find this shield, a red and blue circle with a white star in the middle. That point, we don't know anything yet. So then, that's present day. We jump back to 1942. We meet teeny tiny little Steve Rogers. He's basically the size of this arm right here. Like, I could probably knock him out with my arm flap. He's trying to sign up for the army, except he's got asthma. He doesn't have good eyesight. He doesn't know his ABCs. I don't know. There's like a whole list of reasons why they won't let him join the army. And he's tried many times. He's probably a little bit depressed. So you know what? He goes to the movies. Maybe that'll cheer him up a little bit. Of course, just like with any movie, there's previews. And of course, the preview back in that day is about trying to get young men to enlist in the army. Well, there's an old turd sickle in the audience that's saying, boo, fast forward, when really there's no fast forward back in the day, so he's just dumb. And of course, little precious Steve Rogers is like, hey yo, you better respect. And of course ends up getting his ass kicked in the alley, and we hear his first like catchphrase, which is, I could do this all day, and like puts his fist up, but clearly like he's just getting his ass handed to him. That's when his bestie Bucky shows up. I don't know how he finds him. Maybe he has like GPS in his back pocket, who knows? But Bucky shows up, rescues Steve, takes him on a double date. So they go out, they go to this like new hot spot, which is like Howard Stark's thing to show off his new technology. And you know, Steve's like sort of kind of into it, but the girls really aren't into him, which, you know, he's probably a little bit used to. So while they're at this fair, he sees an enlistment booth. So of course he goes over there because he's gonna lie for the 23rd-ish time. Bucky of course tries to talk him out of it. They get into this little thing, and then there's this like guy that like overhears them, and his name is Abraham Erskine. He's like a little ruffled up German dude, kind of a stalker. That's fine. We're okay with that at this point. Steve Rogers goes in, starts to take his shirt off, you know, ready for the exam. And then the MP, he says, wait a minute. And he's like scared that he's been busted. But old Abraham walks in and he's like, hey, yo, if you're up for it, I got a special project for you, but you got to show up to this thing at the certain time and do the stuff. And Steve's like, I don't like bullies. I'm there. All the while, on the other side of the earth, we've got old turd face Johann Schmidt, who is clearly a bad guy. He goes into this weird tomb thing in Norway and basically beats up Argus Filch from Harry Potter to try to steal the Tesseract. And it's just this glowing blue cube, and we don't really know what it does yet. We just know that it's like a pretty important thing. Coming back to present day, Steve Rogers shows up at camp. Definitely the smallest guy there, standing in the lineup, and in walks, you guessed it, sassy ass Agent Peggy Carter. She's a bad bitch. She knows what she's there for. She don't take no shit. This guy tries to sweet talk her. She gets him to step forward, knocks him on his ass. Instant respect. Love me some Peggy. Then you've got Chester Phillips, who is like the head agent in charge. He's like in charge of the whole platoon, but Peggy's overseeing the trainees. So he's kind of this badass guy, like grumpy, like, I've been doing this for 30 years, I know what I'm talking about, kind of thing. But he's boring, we don't like him. So they put him through all these tests, and of course, like the physical fitness tests, Steve, he clearly does not have the physical stamina to keep up with the rest of these soldiers. The most important tests he passes with flying colors. He's able to get a flag down from a pole that nobody's ever been able to get down before. Point for Steve. Second test, Agent Phillips decides to throw a fake grenade into the crowd, and of course, everybody with some common sense runs away. But Steve throws his body on top of the grenade and tells everybody to get back. And that's when Abraham, good old Abby, he decides that Steve is definitely the one. The one for what, you ask? The one to become the super soldier. They kind of give this little talk. It's Steve and Abraham in the bunk. They're by themselves. And Abraham explains that Johann was a previous subject for the super soldier experiment, but it went badly wrong. We don't know how yet. We don't know the consequences, but we know that Johann is trying to use the same formula to build an army for the Nazis / his own agenda, because he believes in some myths, but he believes it to be true. So the next day, Peggy, she takes Steve over to this like weird coat shop, takes him down into the basement, and that's where they do the whole experiment. So he gets in this like mummy coffin thing, but it's like super scientific. And who's there? Oh, it's Howard Stark. Oh boy, Howard is like the brains behind the technology, combined with Abraham's formula for the super soldier, is gonna change Steve. So they put them in this thing, they inject him with the stuff, they turn all the lights on inside the coffin, and magically that turns Steve into like a 7-foot monster. Monster's too strong of a word, but just a big ass dude. So then in the midst of all that craziness, things are successful. All right. Oh no, there's a spy in their midst. This spy kills Abraham. Steve is like super sad about it, so he like chases after that guy, realizes that he's part of Schmidt's like group, and then that guy bites his own tooth and it's arson, whatever it is in there, and then he dies. At that point, since Abraham's dead, Chester Phillips wants nothing to do with Steve. So a senator uses Steve as propaganda to get people to support the war in whatever way that he can. So Steve goes on this crazy tour of fake punching out Hitler and dancing with half-naked ladies. Who doesn't want to see that show? So they go on tour, they go all around the United States, but then they decide, you know what's a really good idea? Taking this show overseas to hype up the soldiers that are over there. The soldiers don't give a shit. They don't care that Steve is here and that he wants to rally the spirits. They just want to see the dancing ladies. But while they're over there, Steve finds out that his friend Bucky was in the same camp, got captured at one of Schmidt's camps. So he's basically a prisoner of war. So Steve, of course, doesn't really care about his own safety. He goes off to save Bucky. In the process, he saves like 100 different men, bring them back to the camp. But while he's over there, he realizes that Schmidt is in charge of this whole Hydra corporation and has used the Tesseract to build these crazy weapons that can basically just like evaporate anybody in its path. A team of the ragtag group that he rescues decides that they want to bring justice. So they form a group called the Howling Commandos, which is just a terrible name, by the way. And they like bust up all these like Hydra camps. Then they find out where the last Hydra camp is, and that's where Schmidt is holed up. Steve is like, fuck that shit. We're in it to win it. They get on this crazy train. Bucky ends up falling to his death. But then that's when Captain America / Steve is like, I'm gonna fuck your shit up. And then he's like, starts taking over the camp. Everybody starts attacking like they're good. But then Johann Schmidt tries to get away. And Steve / Captain America is like, nah, brah. He jumps on the plane with Johann that he's trying to escape with the Tesseract. He and Johann are like battling it out. Johann's like trying to bomb the US with these like crazy missiles that I'm assuming that he also made with this weird Tesseract technology. But Captain America, he's not having it. We don't want that. They tussle. Somehow Johann gets his hand on the Tesseract. He's holding it up like the skull in Hamlet. And that's when he like Star Trek light beams up into space, and we have no idea what happened to him, but he drops the Tesseract, and the Tesseract just like melts through the bottom of the ship. Steve's like, fuck it, I don't have time to worry about that thing. I don't even know what it is. So he gets in the captain's seat. He's trying to like figure out what to do, and he realizes that he doesn't have a way to just safely land the plane without going to New York, which is where the missiles are heading. So he calls Peggy, because you know what? He loves her. They decide to talk about dancing, and they're gonna meet for a date. All the while, Steve is like, I gotta crash this plane. Or he crashes while he's on the phone with Peggy. Peggy's devastated, as anybody would be. I almost lost my shit when I first watched it. I thought it was depressing. That's when we come back to the very beginning of the movie, where present day, in like 2011, Steve is like laid up in this weird ass bed. He wakes up zombie style, uses his spidey senses to figure out that like he's being played, busts out of that fake room that he's in, runs into the street and runs into modern day Times Square with all these cars and lights and billboards and screens, and he's just like, the fuck, like, where am I? That's when Nick Fury pops up. He's like, hey man, you've been asleep for like 70 years. And Captain America's like, shit, I had a date and now I'm late. And then we just like cut, and that's the end of the movie. I used a lot of words, but that's Captain America. Steve Rogers, he's the man. He is Captain America. If you want to hear more about what I think are magical moments and enchanting efforts throughout the film, follow along to the magical movie review for Captain America, the First Avenger.